And our word for today on this Wednesday of the 12th week in Ordinary Time, this Wednesday, June the 26th, our words for today, teach me. And here to talk about it, Deacon Dan Brahier. Good morning, Deacon Dan.
Hello, Deacon.
Good morning. So your hump day humor reminded me of, this is actually not humor, but it's true, that a recent survey of college professors showed that 94% of professors think that their teaching is above average. It's true. Sit with that one for a minute.
It's funny, though, too.
It is funny. I mean, somebody's really delusioned here.
Yeah, and one of the Stephen Wright quotes that I left out was 83.7% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
There you go. That's awesome. So the word for the day that I have is covenant.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that's okay. I'm going to take a little bit of a different turn on that on the first reading today, because the first reading from the second book of Kings uses that term quite a bit, and I think one of the things that I would like to do is to sort of distinguish between the words covenant and contract. Because I find that those are so often misunderstood. And I was a teacher for all those years, and every year I was issued an annual contract. So the contract says you're going to work 225 days, and I'm going to pay you this amount. Or if you get a cell phone and you got a contract with Verizon, so it says, well, you're going to pay this amount each month, and here's the service we're going to provide. So the idea with a contract is I'm going to give you something, and you're going to give me something in return. And if the terms are broken, then the contract just ends. So if I don't pay my monthly bill to Verizon, the contract is off, and I don't get my service anymore. But a covenant, as described in this first reading today, is entirely different. So we think of the covenant, for example, of matrimony. So on the day of marriage, you give yourself completely to the other person. And you say, in sickness and in health, richer or poorer. And so nothing is expected in exchange. It's not a matter of I'm going to give you this and you'll give me that. It's a two-way promise, but it's a personal promise, and it's a bond that can't be broken. And so it's not like a contract. If I mess up, then the covenant still continues no matter what. And so really the idea of covenant is totally countercultural, because our society, we use it to we're kind of used to this idea of entitlements and think that we're owed something, some kind of compensation for anything that we work or any contributions that we give. And so in the Old Testament, we see how God makes a covenant with his people. He says, I will be your God and you will be my people. And he never stops being God. He never stops loving us. And even if we make mistakes, even if we break that covenant, he never breaks his covenant back from us. And so that's why in the second letter to Timothy, St. Paul says, if we do not believe, God still remains faithful. And he goes on to say he cannot deny himself. In other words, even if we turn away, and heaven knows the Israelites did that over and over, just like we do today, he will remain faithful in his covenant with us. He cannot deny that he is God, nor can he deny that he made this promise to us. And I think one of the most beautiful examples of that, and one that I would recommend if you want to think about this word covenant today, to look at Psalm 89. Psalm 89 is the one that speaks of King David and God's covenant with him. And God says, I've made a covenant with my chosen one. I've sworn to David, my servant. And it goes on to talk about the promise God made to David, that no one will defeat him. And God says he will maintain his mercy for him. His covenant stands firm. And he says, even if the people violate the covenant, he will not. The promise of my lips, he says, I will not alter. And so it's kind of in that context, we look at that first reading today from the second book of Kings. The high priest Hilkiah tells the people that he found the book of the law, the covenant, and how their fathers had not obeyed God. And they read the entire book of this covenant aloud, and they revived the terms of the covenant, which were written in the book, and the people stood by the covenant. So what they did is they were really recognizing how merciful God had been to them, and they recommitted themselves to following that law. And we got to keep in mind that at the time, there were 613 commandments in the Jewish law. But people realized that the right relationship with God implied following them. God is saying, I'm making a covenant with you, and you will be my people forever, but this is what I expect of you. I want you to follow the law. And how hard that is to do. I've been thinking a lot about this controversy going on right now in Louisiana, where that new law requires that every classroom have a small poster in it with the 10 Commandments, the law that was handed down to Moses. And everyone from the ACLU to you name it has come out in opposition to that. How dare you post those laws in schools? Well, let's pretend that they didn't even come from Scripture. Is it really asking too much to remind children that they shouldn't lie, cheat, steal, or kill someone? Mm-hmm. What could really possibly be wrong with that? That's all that God is asking of us. And so today is an opportunity to reflect on God's covenant relationship, recognize that He's our God, we are His people, and He will never give up on us. And so maybe revisiting those 10 Commandments in Psalm 89 would help us today. Just like the Jewish people in the first reading, it's time for us to revisit and recommit to doing what God expects of us.
I love it.
Yeah, and we approach covenants in our society, just as you said, more as contracts. Even in marriage, there's always this idea we can get out, and but not that way from the beginning. So thank you, Deacon Dan.
You're welcome. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too. Always educational and it's entertaining as well. So. All right, and that's our goal for tomorrow, is to be educational, entertaining. All right, so we're going to lower our standards, but hopefully you'll join us anyway for tomorrow's morning offering.